You're watching the Hostile Takeover podcast.
It's unique in the sense the Bay Shore, yes, is 9 radio stations, but based out of Owen Sound, so it still has that small town mentality, small business, mom and pop shop DNA really, really embedded into it. So they understand kind of the importance of local events. Like I know, like I said, with Owen Sound based, really tied in with the Owen Sound attack of the OHL. We really here at 891 Max FM still do a lot of focus on local events and community. We play 5 local artists a day, which is absolutely amazing in my opinion. So the DNA throughout the stations, it's fantastic to have that philosophy and that business approach. That local is important.
Yeah.
Small businesses are important. Local communities and charity is important.
100%.
And that's
DJ Wilverine, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Jacob D. How are you, my man?
I'm doing good. It's good to see your face. It's been a while.
To see you, man. You're looking fantastic, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man. I just got my hair cut yesterday. Feeling good, feeling fresh,
Feeling good, feeling all right.
Yeah, you're looking mighty good yourself. You look cozy there, looking stoic in your home library.
In the home studio, that's kind of a collection of a lot of old CDs I still DJ with. Back over the years. I think I have every one of the Big Shiny Tunes collection up there, even doubles.
Oh, yeah,
A lot of triple and doubles in there, promos from different record labels over the years, and so forth. But
so, like those Big Shiny Tunes discs, like I remember I had like doubles of those because like everyone knew I loved music growing up. So like all these people who like weren't in the biz really just like, here's a Big Shiny Tunes album, and it's like everyone bought me this album,
that much dance.
Yeah, but buying someone like I would say like buying someone like a Big Shiny Tunes compilation as a gift is like the equivalent of like buying them like a gift card. It's just like a thoughtless musical gift.
That or a little for other generations, the Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em Hockey compilation of that year.
I got my grandpa for that for Christmas every year. Like I never related to the guy, so he got Don Cherry's hockey.
Yeah, he got Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em Hockey.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's hilarious.
Chris Shepherd Pirate Radio, and of course either Big Shiny Tunes or Much Dance.
All right, we're rambling and shooting the shit here. DJ Wilverine. For everyone who doesn't know, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in this business.
Oh, no, I'm a DJ and a radio host with 89.1 Max FM Alternative North in Aurelia, a radio station that plays the alternative formats, very similar to those who maybe grew up with CFNY Edge 102 in Toronto and the GTA area. And of course, we service Aurelia, Barrie, Muskoka, Cottage Country. A division or one of the stations in the Bay Shore Broadcasting Network, one of 9 stations, but we're the only one who has an alternative format. Bay Shore mostly has country stations. There's an AM station, standard rock station, a top 40 station, and I believe like a 70s, 80s, 90s station as well, similar to Boom. Also, I'm a filmmaker, film director, coming out of music videos and TV commercials, heading into the feature world, currently directing my first feature. And of course, like I said, you hear me every Saturday night on 891 Max FM or in a club near you, dropping the best beats and riffs from the realm of alternative music.
Right on. I didn't know you were like directing a film. I knew you were involved in film and had some different roles and stuff, but that's really cool, man. Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. Yeah, it's first time coming into a longer format. I came out of film school directing music videos for independent bands such as All Systems Go, which was a band that John Castor formed after the breakup of the Doughboys. Eric's Trip, Elevator, early work for Sam Roberts, or a Sam Roberts-based project, more to the point. At cool kind of alternative independent bands, which moved into some television commercial work. And now here I am making that jump into features with a feature documentary currently being done on the late, great, legendary Martin Streek.
Very cool, man. So like let's get into like your career, I guess. Um, like everyone kind of in the music industry and uh, the advice people give and just like the state of things. Like radio is this like kind of like dead dinosaur to a lot of people, which isn't my opinion at all. I think radio has a rich history, and it's relevant today, and relevant in future as well, with like it's like really the only broadcasting system in like a state of emergency, right? It's like has this like beautiful simplicity to it, that allows it to function like if other critical infrastructure goes down. So yeah, it's just like what drew you to radio? Because like we grew up in the same time, and like like everyone was talking about like the internet and stuff, and like how it changed music and streaming and everything. Like what made you go into radio? What drew you to it?
Oh, how I actually got to 89.1 is a different story, but I was always drawn to radio. So, in a sense, I grew up in Oakville, Ontario, and I'm also a fourth generation cottager. Family cottage in the Severn Fall in Wood Bay on the Severn River and in the Severn Falls area. So I grew up a lot of time weekends in this area without, cable TV. The TV
Yeah.
station, when we got up here, the TV picked up 3 stations.
Hmm.
And I remember being 8 years old, going with my father to Radio Shack to get an antenna booster. So him and mom can bring in Saturday Night Oldies with Don Daynard on Saturday nights. And as I got a little older, I spent some time with the kids who were a little older than me in the in Wood Bay, around in the cottage, the regular cottagers and the regular kids, and some of the older kids who were from the Bolton Brampton area would come up with cassette tapes of Club 102 and Chris Shepherd. I was just kind of really blown away by who Chris was in that presence, home taping. And so radio's always been kind of that presence for me, as well as I grew up with detective stories. So there was a CBC that would play like the old audio dramas late at night at like 12 night or something, when you were still awake, if you could stay awake being that young. So I was always kind of, so being raised outside of, a lot of cable, being from that generation where it's not 1,000 channels instantly,
Yeah.
you have different mediums to
Yeah.
explore. And radio being one of them, and all different kind of sorts of formats of radio, and this is where your music came from. This is where the people, again, Chris being leading the way, telling you what the greatest new hits were from the UK, what was new coming out of the US. MTV was starting to get traction 5 or 6 years in, but really radio led the way on breaking what was new and what was cool, and telling you what was happening in the world and news and when traffic. Like you said there, the FM and AM frequency was your instant information source to the world. And it was
Yeah.
always there, always dependable. You had one in your car, you had one in the home, you had your clock radio. It was easier to access a radio than it was a television at the time.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, like so many people just don't get growing up, and I want to really dive into like the history of radio like a little bit later. But yeah, like
Right.
just like yeah, some people just don't get like it was like it's hard to imagine like somebody who's like under say 30 years old to think of a time where there wasn't not only cell phones but like there wasn't even TV. Like radio was the king of broadcasting for a long time, and in some ways it still is. um but yeah, that's really cool, man. Like it's I know you love music, and I know it's like a huge part of your life. So it's cool you found like a niche and like a like a kind of smaller market now. And more importantly, like I want to talk about the Bayshore broadcasting, like the parent company of
Mm.
Max FM. What's it like working for like a smaller outfit, like because like part of the reason that I don't really like, one of the things I hate about radio is that it's all the same as like TV. It's all like one giant corporation,
Mm.
under like a huge umbrella. So you go to any place around the world and you're hearing the same DJ, and it's like the same content, and it's so what's it like working for a smaller company?
It's very freedom from my point of view, as I think I could be one of the last or standing or only DJs on the FM format in this country who gets to play whatever I want to play. Like in my contract, when I take the air on Saturday night, it's everything I want to play. There's no one telling me you have to play this song or any creative control.
That's
Uh, so
that's
I, I,
awesome.
I it is. It really is. It just allows me to kind of do what I was hired to do and be me. It's unique in the sense the Bay Shore, yes, is 9 radio stations, but based out of Owen Sound, so it still has that small town mentality, small business, mom and pop shop
Yeah.
DNA really, really embedded into it. So they understand kind of the importance of local events. Like I know, like I said, we Owen Sound based, really tied in with the Owen Sound attack of the OHL. We really here at 891 Max FM still do a lot of focus on local events and
Mhm.
community. We play 5 local artists a day, which is absolutely amazing in my opinion. So the DNA throughout the stations, it's fantastic to have that philosophy and that business approach that local is important.
Yeah.
Small businesses are important. Local communities and charity is important. And that's
100%.
and that's probably the biggest aspect, the biggest positive outside of me being me.
Yeah.
Have my complete creative control of creative music and the sounds and records I want to play. That is probably the biggest benefit and amazing part of being with Bayshore. And the other thing is, they take chances. Like I was not. You asked the question earlier. I'll circle back to it. I've never done radio before this. Came
Really,
out of
it was
nowhere.
your first radio gig?
Yeah, I'm a club DJ. It's the same
Oh,
concept.
okay.
So what happened there was the history of 891 Max FM was back. Bayshore applied and got the license. I want to say 2010. Ian Selecki, our director of operations, if you're listening, if I got the date wrong, you can, tell me later.
Fire you.
Yeah, but yeah, whatever. 891 Max F 891 went on the air out of Aurelia, known as Sunshine, and it was a very local based, and they called themselves the voice of the Twin Lakes. And I think they believe they had a call-in show at noon where people can call in, like, is council spending too much money? Do we need a new stop sign on Mississauga Street? Kind of those local issues, kind of
Mhm.
based, and of course, your basic background office music, very kind of CHFI approach to it. And I don't know the history. I wasn't there. That format didn't work. Flash for about 2019, May 24, 2019, it flipped to an alternative format. And I thought that was really cool. It was something that I'd always kind of hoped for and wished for. Going back to
Yeah.
growing up, being a fourth generation cottager, and we'd be up there with the radio boosters trying to bring in Edge 102 CFNY, Martin Streek's Live to Airs, or Chris Shepard's Pirate Radio on Energy 108. The idea of having the cool alternative station in cottage country just really appealed to me. And I wanted to be involved, and I wasn't sure how to be involved, to be honest.
Mhm.
And JD Hunter, who was the former program director there, I'm trying to remember even how JD and I connected. I think a mutual friend introduced us. And he just thought it'd be a fit. So he introduced me to Rob Wilshire, who's the sales manager over there. And Rob, he was a younger, he's about my age, in his younger days, would DJ at places and around town that no longer exist in Aurelia, called places like Wizards, etc. That, and he grew up with Chris Shepard, and he kind of knew what I would bring to the table for a Saturday night. And Dave Cockrum, aka Dangerous Dave, was program director at the time, and he agreed. And kind of listened to some of my mixtape demos, and then Dave brought me in, just the two of us in the studio. He put me in the booth and just said, "Go." I kind of did what I did. I just presented myself like I was in a club show, and I thought about, importantly, how Chris would do it, Shepard, his run at CFNY, especially in the early days, about 88, 89, 90, and stuff like 891, getting crazy on your weekend, getting crazy on your Saturday night, feeling all white, feeling all right. And Dave was just like, "You're my guy." And about 3 weeks later, I'm on the air, July 1st, July 1st long weekend, 2020. And it's kind of a bit of a learning curve. A lot of ways, I'm very, Dave Cockrum really didn't want to change much about me. He worked on the fundamentals with me as well. Same with Rob Frost, Rob Murphy, Rob Frost. When
Mm-hmm.
he was with us for a bit, Rob really and worked with me on radio fundamentals, but at the same time, not wishing to rub away or take anything away from who I was and the way I did things. And also Deb James as well, from her sister station 97.7 Max FM, the 70s, 80s, 90s station, was very helpful in working with me in the same approach. Kind of gave some pointers, things for me to work on, but at the same time, not really wanting to take away who I am and what I do and how I present and how I talk and how I DJ and how I go on air. And I'm very thankful for that, to all that. But it's still been a learning curve. I'm still learning every day on that. But you had to kind of come out and bang, hey, here you go on the Saturday night show. Like, not even going to school for radio broadcasting. I have a degree in film production, but not radio or any form of broadcasting. I've worked in television. Never, I was an on-air personality in any regards. And here we are. And it's been quite the trip, man. We're getting crazy.
That's really cool, man. I've doing this podcast. I want to talk to all sorts of different people throughout the music industry and tech, and I think it's really cool that one, just we met, because we didn't even meet in the industry.
Oh,
We met I basically taken a year off from my production and tour management work, and we met. I picked up a job bartending part time just to kind of make ends meet. And we met there, so we're not even industry friends. So it's kind of neat that we came together and we're finally kind of collaborating on something. I know we always talked about doing some things, but
yeah.
yeah, just like you and your unique position that you have, like you mentioned, you might be one of the only you know independent or semi-independent DJs that has this freedom to do what they want without that giant corporate monopoly radio stations telling them exactly what they're going to play. So I think that's just so cool. And we've shot the shit about bands and stuff before, and you're like, yeah, I'm playing them on my radio show. I'm like, that's awesome. And I don't listen to radio, man. I don't. The only time I listen to radio is when I'm in a shopping center or some public square, or when I'm in my car. And Max FM is number one on my dial.
We appreciate that,
And
man. Thank you.
yeah, it's I like rock music, and it's just cool to hear, because I'm always my Spotify, I'm constantly making playlists, and then I'm listening to Spotify algorithm's crazy for discovering new music, so and I just love discovering new music. So it's cool to have that exist in this tiny little community where I'm living. I feel super lucky to have it. And I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass or anything because you're a friend, but I really honestly truly find it amazing. And not only what your opportunity, but just Bayshore in general, just being so resilient in maintaining community, because you know it's communities falling apart with the media and the digital age. Everything's so global now. And there's when I was in Muskoka, I used to listen to Hunters Bay a lot, and I had mad respect for them and just the work they did in the community. So yeah, super cool, man.
Oh, community radio still has a place. I still firmly believe that community television has a place. Like Rogers Channel 10, Ojiko My TV
Hmm.
Channel 23, even Bell with the Bell 5 TV1 portal. It allows up and coming TV producers and filmmakers to create quality content and have a place to show it.
Yep.
Yeah, and community radio like Hunters Bay. There's also a great station down in the Kitchener Waterloo area. Pete Fowler, former CFNY personalities involved with that.
What's that
It's
one? Because I'm down there quite often.
Pete,
You
if you're
know.
listening, my apologies. I'll have to Google that.
We'll
I just kind
we'll
of
throw it up on the lower thirds there when I
throw it
edit
up on the
this.
lower. Yeah. And it's odd because I don't listen to a lot outside of what we're doing because I'm fortunate also to be involved in a lot of the programming and music meetings and a lot of input to what happens on the station outside of what I do. So I spend a lot of time listening to our station and trying to feel or, and my opinion is asked, how we can be better. Um, Another asset I really like with Bayshore is you see they saw a lot what I was bringing to the table, mainly of my knowledge of alternative radio in Southern Ontario, coming from a lot of the work and research I've done on the Martin Streek documentary, having many conversations with people such as Dave Marsden, Scott Turner, Stuart Myers, Alan Cross, George Stroumboulopoulos, Cumberland Fred, and learning really the ins and outs of what made that format work. The one it's entertainment, as you know, Jacob, and music is, oh, I can work at a radio station. I have good taste in music. I like this song and I like this song. And that passion, don't get me wrong, is fantastic and it works to a degree. But as I've learned in film, now in the radio, there is an entrepreneurship business side to it. Have to have a vision. You have to kind of step back and where everything has to make sense. Everything has to have some form of harmonious flow. And, and that's something where that's why I'm constantly when I'm with listening to our station, I'm making those notes or how I can be better, or maybe as the station can
Yeah.
be better. So it's been this kind of unique focus, like this hyper focus on 89 Max FM. But other stations are out there doing some
Yeah, for
great
sure.
stuff, and radio still has a place. And AM radio may be on the way out. I know if you've read this, but
I haven't.
AM radio, as the automotive industry is moving to electrical vehicles,
Yep.
a signal component, and I haven't read all the engineering reports on it, but components in the electrical batteries that are developing cause interference with the AM frequency, the AM signal. So moving forward, as we move into electrical vehicles, these newer vehicles roll off the line. They may not have AM radios. You may have FM, and of course the satellite too,
Yeah.
Sirius XMs and satellite radio, and maybe Apple radio,
Which is just
as well.
completely different. Like I don't call satellite radio radio. Like that.
Why not?
Well, because it's not radio, right? It's not like it's not a radio frequency, right?
Understood.
It's like a digital. It's like a digital thing, and like you
Understood. No,
you need certain things to like tap into it, right?
absolutely. Well, to a
Right.
certain degree, all you need is a phone or a Wi-Fi service or a phone with data plan.
Yeah, but you also need like because they put it behind a wall of sorts, right? Like
Depending on what
it's
it
not
is.
like open broadcast. Like you can't just tune into it. You have to like subscribe to it, right?
Yeah, on degree, like I know with Apple. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. And it's just a newer format in
Yeah.
that regards. One of them, I really like Apple Music Radio. Because once in a while I'll tune into what George Stroumboulopoulos is doing with that. He's on Apple Radio Hits. It allows him to do a live radio show, like a live broadcast. She approaches like a radio show over the internet in that regards. You never know. You never know. The internet stream may, because we're seeing Netflix moving to commercials.
Yeah.
Like the subscription format may be on its way out, Jacob, in both with television, such as your Netflix or Amazon Primes, as well in that radio format. They may have to turn back to advertising.
There's no doubt about it. It'll change. Like it's always changing, right? And like people are always adapting and new things come out. But which is one of the things that's so fucking cool about radio, man. It's just had this like resilience like through all of it. And radio, like it's still there. It's still relevant. And you've seen like all these different medias go out, like you saw like 8 tracks, records, CDs, digital downloads, streaming, television, the internet, video streaming, and radio's just been there, like the whole time.
Yeah. And radio will always, again, have that place. Like you said, for emergency broadcasts. Once in a while, I go over what has to be done in case World War III breaks out. Knock on wood, that does not happen if I'm on air. Kind of that procedure, and because the AM frequency and the FM frequency may be our only line of communication. Something of that if something of that nature does happen. And radio, the other thing is also the personalities. It isn't just the music, but people. Again, I talked about Chris Shepard, Martin Streek, Humble and Fred, Don Daynard, who I grew up with. My parents loved Don Daynard, who I grew up with. Aaron Davis, who joined him in the mornings at one time. And Scruff Connors and Tarzan Dan on 640
Yeah.
CFTR before it went to an all news format. People remember the personalities as well. Wolfman Jack and even Ryan Seacrest. Ryan Seacrest, at the end of the day, to me, is still a radio guy no matter what he does. At the end of the day, he's still, in my opinion, an incredible, incredible morning man. And even George Stroumboulopoulos is love his radio. And he well, there he is. He wanders back to radio through Apple format. Despite all his success on television, he finds his way back to radio. And the intimacy of radio will never, ever go away. Just kind of maybe being that voice that you can just hear and tune in. You don't need to see someone. You just maybe need to hear someone to connect with them. And that's very powerful in its own right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get caught up in the visuals of what someone looks like.
Yeah.
They physically attractive. And that's all I have on that. Like, yeah, do you want to sleep with them? Are they your celebrity crush?
Yeah.
And somehow with radio,
Well,
it allows you.
video killed the radio star, right? Like
Yeah.
it became this thing of image and not of
It's true.
other meanings. Yeah.
That's true. Like in the 80s, the first bands they were signing when MTV came out, for example, Duran Duran, but they kind of struck gold because Duran Duran were good-looking guys, but outstanding musicians and songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
But if Kid Rock, love or hate Kid Rock, and I know he's more conservative opinions recently, but remove that from the equation. He made a very good observation about the Allman Brothers, bands like that in the 70s. Like, he's pretty much said these were ugly motherfuckers, if I can swear on this podcast.
You can swear on this podcast, yeah.
But they could write songs, and they could play, and they can sing. And you mentioned Randy Bachman as we were chatting earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Cummings.
Yeah, who's like Randy Bachman is like my favorite radio broadcast ever was
Really?
Randy Bachman on Vinyl Tap doing a bit on the Hammond B3 organ and the Leslie cabinet that usually accompanies it. And man, like, did he ever dive into not only the like geeky side of things, which I try to steer away from on this podcast, but just the amazing versatility of it. At the time I wasn't really into like reggae music and all that, but like I'd heard it in rock and I like country music and I really loved it. But he and I got into reggae years later after this, but he really introduced me just to the versatility of this like wonderful instrument. That's my favorite instrument for sure. And it's just that was that came over the radio waves, man, and that's super special. And that's like I've told that story to a few people about when Randy Bachman comes up and like not only a huge impact he's had on just Canada, but on me and that like little moment in time, that like hour broadcast that was just so special.
Well, I would know because I was going to go down the path that him and Burton Cummings weren't the best looking guys. Like they were not on the posters,
Man,
but they could write.
I don't know, man.
sing.
Burton Cummings' mustache is just chef's kiss.
I'm sorry, as a child of the 80s, Tom Selleck, Magnum PI.
Yeah.
That's the stash.
Well, they're in the same. They're in the same
stash.
club, Like they're, if there was a club for that kind of mustache, like those dudes they'd be members of the board,
No, it would be Tom Selleck, Magnum PI, Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott's mustache is fucking legit. Have you seen that new series he's in? It was like it's like 1883 or something like that.
Yeah.
That was fucking. Anyways,
no, because I'm a huge influence on me is in my film work and my writing recently, and that is Taylor Sheridan. Created Yellowstone and then wrote 1883.
Amazing series.
Yeah, just incredible writer. And been a huge influence on me over the past few years, and massive influence on will probably be my second film, which would be a scripted drama scripted film coming out of documentary.
Cool. Can you tell us? Can you tell us more about this, or is it like?
Well, right, pretty attached. the producer who would like to do that film really wants me to finish the Martin Streek documentary so she can show the financiers this
Yeah,
guy can direct.
yeah.
So it's been working title is Three Trails, and it's my kind of boyhood dream, or one of my many boyhood dreams. Like Homer Simpson, have many boyhood dreams. Eat the world's biggest hoagie at the county fair, manage a beautiful female country singer. No, none of that.
Shania, if you're listening.
Shania, if you are listening.
Yeah.
I wanted to shoot a film where it had like the Steve McQueen bullets, the French Connection of snowmobile snowmobile chase scenes, and that's what I created for this kind of film.
Cool.
And yeah, so that's all I really got on that. I still have a lot of work to do on that script,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of development, casting, but a lot of moving parts on it.
Cool.
But I'm pretty excited by that heading into the future.
Cool.
It's just
Man,
exciting.
I had no idea like you were so versatile. You'd never mentioned you were writing. You'd never mentioned that.
Oh yeah,
to me
it's
before.
just it's kind of a trick on that, because when people ask, well, "What are you writing?" and then you talk it out, you don't write it. That's the thing. Is that people get, well, and this happens, and this character comes in, and this is their love interest,
Mhm.
and I've seen this with many people. They talk it out. They talk out their script. They talk out their story. They talk out their novel.
Mhm.
But then they don't sit down to write it out.
Mhm.
And I kind of keep that kind of all in house, because that's how I need to get it out.
Cool.
If I get it out on the page, I'm actually getting the work done. It's like going to the gym. It's like saying, yeah, it's 2023, I'm going to hit the gym. And next thing you know, you're opening a bag of Pringles because it's May 2 for a long weekend. You can say you're going to do something to your blue in the face, but you actually have to do it.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I just kind of keep that focus on. I keep that focus on actually doing it and driving my mind to doing it. And it's just kind of the way I'm wired, in that DNA way.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that's a huge jump from like documentary writing to like a scripted drama, man. That's like such a much more like personal like view and like creative process. It's
It's a different approach,
yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure.
The documentary, like I said, you write notes, but a lot of the documentary comes together in the edit. Now you're putting together because you don't know where the interviews are going. In this
Mhm.
case, with a scripted feature, or when you're directing scripted drama, yeah, you don't want to be rigid. Like Nicholas, who directed The Graduate, always said, his most happiest time on set is when he's surprised. And I love watching actors coming from an editing background, when about the third or fourth take they may do something different,
Mhm.
and really kind of that's in the movie, and they're kind of in the character and engage. And realize, after reading interviews and conversations I've had with individuals such as David Fincher, like, he's known for doing notorious takes, and he's not being the taskmaster, or even Stanley Kubrick, who he gets compared to on that regards. The idea is to really allow the actor to really get into the moment in the scene, and then maybe to allow themselves to create their own freedom and not be rigid in the moment
Yeah.
at the same time.
Mhm.
Not maybe trying to hit all the lines verbatim as is written on the script.
Mhm.
I try to think, okay, scene opens, I open the door, I take 3 steps, throw down my coat on the chair, go over and pour a drink. Like,
Yeah.
the
So
philosophy
that's
there is,
like I know like I love film,
yeah,
but I know nothing about the process of it. I've never worked in film. I've done a bunch of live broadcasts before, and I've
yeah.
worked in theater. And like
Oh,
what
wow.
you're describing is a very like theatrical style of acting, because it's all about timing,
Right.
and so it's like, yeah, I'm gonna say this line, then I'm gonna take 3 steps out, like 1, 2, 3, bam, and then put the glass down, or like 1, 2, 3, say something, bam, put the glass down,
Correct.
and like, yeah, like I imagine with film you have like a lot more like, and theater also works all this out but like I think in film, like you kind of have that moment to like you said, like capture that thing you might get in the fourth take that wasn't even scripted or talked about.
Correct.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's and you just want Again, back to that reference, you walk in, you don't want to think about it. You want to come in like you're coming home, you throw your coat on the chair, and then you pour yourself a drink. And you've done that every Friday night for the past 6 years in this apartment.
Yeah.
And even though it's the first time maybe you sat there, you're trying to create that moment.
Very cool,
And
man.
yeah, and that's kind of the product of filmmaking. And I always kind of, it's everything I do is storytelling, Jacob.
Yeah.
In a sense, like a DJ set, I know there's a start, a middle, and an ending.
Yeah.
And I've been, my comparisons, or someone called me very cinematic DJ in that sense, where I try to ride the wave as a dance floor, bring it down a bit, and then bring the tempo back up.
Yeah.
Like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I also include a lot of film samples in my set as well, because that's where I came from.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
kind of how I started. I was creating mixtapes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I started, creating mixtapes using film editing software more
Yeah.
than anything before I actually started learning the actual decks and boards and vinyl records.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Doing film like takes and stuff, like I think that kind of comes from like our generation, right? Back, before maybe the like 80s, maybe bands like Kraftwerk or something were doing it, but like like I remember like the example of that to me is my favorite one is this hardcore band out of they were from like Picton County or something. Not remembering the name right now, but their album was just super hardcore, super fast. And that scene from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where they get to the hotel and the cop convention is there.
Yes.
And the cop is talking to the kid behind the counter, and the cop, like, they don't have the room available, or like there was some mix up in like the booking, and like the cop is just like yelling at this kid, and then like it does like a switch somehow. It kind of switches over to the kid, and the audio from the cop fades out into like a muffled yell, and then he has this internal dialogue where he's like, listen, you fucking pig. He's like, I've been slapped around by a bunch of motherfuckers like you, and I've had enough. And he's like, and now it's my time. I'm in charge. And that's the clip that this band put in front, like at the very beginning of this track. And then it just goes into like this heavy riff. I can't think of the name. Oh, the Polydicks. That's their name. You should check them out. They're like a wicked hardcore band.
Noted.
Yeah.
To that extent, yeah, but also samples in music. But I remember growing up in the '90s with soundtracks such as Clerks, Kevin Smith's first film,
Yeah.
Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction.
Wait. I don't think Clerks was his first film. I think he did Vulgar first, if I'm not mistaken. And that led to the whole View Askew clown, because Vulgar was about that, the View Askew clown logo they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Vulgar was about that clown.
I believe Kevin Smith's first film was Clerks, because he put together all the money on credit cards.
Maybe like the writing and directing of it, but I'm like, I don't know. I'd have to IMDb it or something, but yeah. Either way, go ahead.
On the Clerks soundtrack, they would have the classic bits of the in between the songs. So
yeah,
example, Soul Asylum, fade out, and you go into Have You Seen My Kids? No Time for Love, Dr. Jones, and then to the next song.
Yeah.
Like they would have clips, like in Tarantino as well, in the soundtracks. They actually just shove clips of the movies in between the songs as a transition piece, and that's where I always liked. And so I started incorporating that into DJ sets.
Yeah.
The first one, kind of really when I went really hardcore with it, was what I refer to as known as my 7 mix, where I take songs from the film Seven, the David Fincher film Seven, with movie clips and the songs. For example, the Coil remix precursor of 9 Inch Nails' Closer, which is the opening credits of the film. And you go into that, and then you can go into Morgan Freeman's character, Detective Somerset, saying, you could have put 5 of these more, Lieutenant, into something by serial killer by The Prodigy. And then you can kind of, depending on the night too, depending how eclectic you want to be, people forget there's a lot of jazz in that film. For example, the Somerset character is listening to jazz in his apartment. They're listening to jazz when Morgan Freeman's character is over for dinner with Brad Pitt and Gwyneth
Yeah.
Paltrow. When they're kind of hanging out in the pizza place all along the waterfront by Billie Holiday's playing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
The point being, serial killer, and then you can go into and use clips from the movie, the Gravity Falls song that is playing in the sex club for the lust murder victim, and then end with the remix of Heart's Filthy Lesson by David Bowie, which has a great bit. So you almost can tell the film using samples. What's in the bottom, and that's what I play these songs in the club or on the mixtape, and using the samples from film, pretty much telling Seven in those regards. In my version of telling the film Seven by using music, and because I grew up with that. Again, the same idea. Another classic one is the Natural Born Killers soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Different clips from Natural Born Killers
Yep.
in the soundtrack into the actual physical album into the soundtrack, and that's what I just loved. And also same with Chris Shepard's mega mixes in the late '80s, early '90s, still with CFNY can influence as well. So yeah, cinema and music to me is in the same DNA, and I just kind of
For
splice
sure.
that DNA together all
For
the time.
sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
that marriage of audio and video. You know, like if you think about any of like Tarantino's movies, imagine those movies without a soundtrack.
correct,
You know,
correct. Or in
like even
Scorsese's films.
even like Reservoir Dogs, which was like really like almost a theatrical performance. Like but like there were scenes in that movie that music just really added, you know, so much power. Like the what's like the Stuck in the Middle with You when he's cutting the guy's ear off. It's got this upbeat song.
Exactly.
It's like
Or
that would like it's just such a different vibe. You know.
same with The Crow. Like a lot of films in the '90s, their use of music, and then you look at Scorsese's work in the '90s with Goodfellas. Train Spotting comes to mind as well. Same with Fight Club. The fact that David Fincher brought in the Dust Brothers to do the score. Outside, and of course, the Pixies, Where's My Mind, got a bit of a reboost, a relaunch, a reintroduction, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
with its use in the end credits. And was similar to how Wayne's World brought back Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody for all extensive
Oh
purposes.
shit! Yeah.
And
No, for real, it did.
yeah, and again, those moments, putting the tape in the car or radio. I think we'll go with a little Bohemian Gentleman, Blue Rhapsody Gentleman. Good call. And
Such a great film. I love that movie so much.
And that's kind of the
I
thrill
have
of coming off
I have a hot take on Wayne's World.
go for it.
Wayne's World 2 is better.
All right.
Yeah, I don't just personally for me, like like being a production guy, and the whole like music building the music festival thing, like it just rang through that, and that like Chris Farley doing fucking roadie road school, like when he has all like the like shit on stage, he's like puppeteering, and like people have to go like pick up a microphone, and like it's just Wayne's World 2 is better than Wayne's World 1, and I'll fucking die on that hill, man, and I have many times before. Fought it.
It's been a while since I've seen the Wayne's World films, so I do remember the skits. I actually enjoyed the skits more than the films.
Skits were great too. Yeah, that was such a golden age of SNL, man.
And it's like Aerosmith or Wayne Gretzky when they had Wayne Gretzky on, and all they're talking about is how hot Janet Jones is.
I haven't seen that. That might have been a little bit before. That might have been before my time. Like I kind of came into it in like the Chris Farley, David Spade, Adam Sandler years.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that time, because Dana Carvey and Mike Myers would have moved on, and they were the new generation. They'd got their big TV and movie deals.
Yeah,
and
they were a little bit before. Like I think maybe a little bit I've seen but like they definitely weren't like there like when I was like really watching it. For the most.
Saturday Night Live always has this people, the original not for ready for prime time players, and you look at the groundbreaking work by
for sure.
Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo and Chevy Chase back then, and then they all get movie careers and move on.
Yeah.
Then new talent emerges, and Mike Myers and Dana Carvey and all being part of that. And then you get into Jimmy Fallon and Sandler and Chris Farley, that group that emerges. And later on, you got Will Ferrell, and
who's Pete Davidson, who's like one of the newer guys who like really broke. Like he's huge now. SNL's been like a huge staple in like bringing is like comedians, anyways, and like
Well, yeah,
comical actors
comedic talent or
to
actor, or
the
yeah,
to
people,
mainstream. Yeah,
yeah, like
Lauren
people
Michaels
who
has
have.
a eye for talent for sure.
Oh, absolutely, and it's everyone's different, the unique style, and like you look at some of the stuff online, what Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo did as Stevie Wonder and Frank Sinatra, like, oh, you can't run that skit today,
Oh no, of course not. Yeah.
and even George Carlin, who was the first ever host, and of the way I'm a huge fan of comedians because I see them as our modern day philosophers. They get up there
Absolutely.
and the way they communicate using humor to point flaws or greatness.
Yeah,
Like I still think the greatest, in my opinion, still is George Carlin.
for sure. For sure. Yeah, I've always I talk about comedy a lot on this podcast actually. I'm a huge comedy fan. I've toured with a lot of comedians, and yeah, George Carlin is you know, the goat, man. He's the goat. He was funny, he was philosophical, and that's all the best thing about comedians is like anyone can go up and tell a bunch of dick and fart jokes and get easy
Right.
laughs, but like George Carlin is an artist.
It's true.
He takes you on a ride that's like you said in your DJ world, like you bring it up and bring it down, and George Carlin does that. Um, Doug Stanhope does that really well, and yeah, there's lots of others too that can kind of you know just ride that wave and like tell a serious story for like a half, like Dave Chappelle also like another goat. He'll sit down in front of an audience on a stool and he'll just tell a story for a half an hour. Like, and there's, maybe like a little quick joke here and there, but it's like serious. It's like he's stoic, and then he'll kill with a laugh at the end.
Oh,
It's
yeah. Eddie Murphy just
yeah.
demonstrated that on his award speech.
Come on. Speaking of cheap laughs.
Oh, that's so great. Out of nowhere, he drops the Will Smith joke, and I'm like, oh, Eddie Murphy, you still got it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Need
he's
Beverly
Eddie
Hills Cop
Murphy's
4, 5,
there's
and
another
6.
comic goat, man. Yeah.
Oh,
And yeah, that's the other thing. Like my buddy Bradshaw and I were talking. He like this
John
was a
Layfield
couple
Bradshaw?
weeks ago. What's that?
John Layfield Bradshaw?
No, DJ Danny B actually.
Oh,
He's a colleague of yours. He was talking about he showed you know he was showing his girlfriend some comedians because he's into comedy too, and he threw on Raw like for Eddie Murphy, and his
yeah.
girlfriend was like, "This is like horrifically offensive on so many levels." And at the time, like it was edgy, but like people wouldn't like lynch him for it. But yeah, it's funny you can't. It's comedian world, it's a changed landscape for them for sure. They have to
Oh,
tread lightly.
well, no, and that's the thing. Will someone emerge like an Eddie Murphy, and to a certain degree, like Andrew Dice Clay, the way he came out of the chute?
Hmm.
Someone will,
I never liked Clay.
you and Clay was. I've seen his recent acting work, and in respect, I remember Andrew Dice Clay because the nursery rhymes and stuff, and you thought it was immature and funny and dick and fart and all that.
Yeah,
And Carlin wasn't, and guys like George Carlin, their clean stuff was just as brilliant as their dirty stuff, even
that's the
more.
thing about Carlin. He all across the
You know,
board, which makes him the goat.
I mean,
You meant what was it? What did I see Dice Clay in that I enjoyed? Was it Entourage maybe?
he was
Where
in
he
Entourage.
was, and like he had his kid living with him, and his kid was like a drummer, and like
Yeah,
he had him he was really good in that. I'll give him that. Like that was you know but I think
he had a
he
very
like it was matured for sure.
he had a very great role. He was people forget he had a very subtle, solid role as Lady Gaga's father in the remake of A Star Is Born.
Oh, was he in that?
He
I, I
plays Lady
don't
Gaga's father.
I don't think I gave that one an honest watch.
And
But
then he was in the Alan film Blue Jasmine. I thought he was great in. Like you said, like in Entourage, that turn. He
mhm.
also, and I haven't seen it, but people tell me the show it's like Entourage. It's him playing himself, but it's
Mhm.
like Entourage, like a scripted parody version of
Mhm.
himself.
Yeah.
Him as working as he's got a residency in Vegas as a comedian and trying to raise his kids and you know do all that. And people who've told me about it say that's brilliant. That he's very good in that. Kind of an evolution of him, and he knows, and I think he's acknowledged what he was back then. He just kind of came out, but again, back to Carlin. Carlin kind of pointed out like what may not make someone like Andrew Dice Clay last in that regards is comedians tend to be a champion for the underdog,
Mhm.
use their voice on stage. And what
Yeah.
Carlin was saying there was that, and Carlin, and for all extensive purposes, sorry, Andrew Dice Clay, as George Carlin was pointing out, was attacking or going after women, and as well as he'd make jokes about if I was a white girl, I'd yeah, if anyone was listening, but the line was, I'd bang nothing but black guys because of their huge penises. And Carlin pointed out, when you're kind of going after the underdog and minority, making them the brunt of the joke,
Yeah.
you're kind of losing, you really are losing your voice, um, your potential, your spectrum as a comedian.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try to.
Yeah. You got to the all the best comedians because like Doug Stanhope, for instance, I bring him up all the time when I'm talking about comedians and why he's one of my favorites. Is like he is really like the underdog, and he's a champion of the underdogs, and you know, it's the whole punching up versus punching down. You'll never hear Stanhope like sink to that kind of joke. He's always sticking it to the system and just going about it that way, and in that way he's able to say these like crazy things.
Yeah,
But it's that little difference is punching up versus punching down.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's just kind of, it's reading an audience and reading a room and communicating what you think needs to be said at that time, what song needs to be played at that time.
Yeah.
And that's things I learned from listening to early Chris Shepard. Like, look on a lot of the message boards when it comes to someone like Shep, is some of these kind of more technical aspect DJs, and even it was addressed in when Chris did a new music interview with Kim Clark Chalmers back in the day. He's not one of the best technical DJs, meaning the BPM, the beat matching, all those
Hmm.
techniques.
Hmm.
And I never worry about that, mainly because I always thought it was about tone and texture, not just BPM.
Yeah.
Right song at the right time. If you're going from Underworld to the Smiths, you are making that transition. And when you listen to how Chris would explore different sounds back in the day, it's just phenomenal. And then later on, when Chris left, Martin Streek came in, and Martin's DJ, because Martin was the host and he had a DJ in the club because Martin was supposed to be a brand ambassador to be out there with the people. He couldn't be chained to the DJ booth. Paul Dingra, who I call Master Jedi Paul Dingra, who I've luckily become friends with over the process of the past few years and learned a lot from him. Like Hybrid in that group, Craig G, all those great individuals. Challenging because when you're DJing with rock and alternative music, which is rock based, outside of the dance world, it isn't always beat matching. It is it's a very very different beast to master in the sense of especially song transition.
Hmm.
And this is where things like Spotify drives me nuts because it's just me. Maybe I'm tuned in. Example, if I'm at the establishments we all know, I'm going to give shouts to all of them.
Hmm.
Kuchin Craft Brewing Company when they're not playing me. It was a mass special radio
Great
show.
burgers down there.
Absolutely. Chef
Hmm.
Brennan is the man. Off the chain hook. Kensington Burger Bar, which has a burger named after me, supposedly. No, that is not true. It's a whole other
I
story.
do I
Don't even.
did so I love Kensington. I worked there. That's where we met. And
Right.
one of my favorite memories of there was you getting told that story that you would tell women that they had that burger named after you, the Dunlop.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not incorrect. I wouldn't use it as a lot. The origin of that goes back
I'm
to.
calling you out.
No, no, no. The origin of that goes back to one night at Kensington Bar, and it was kind of packed. And this is pre-COVID. I'd like to point out, boys and girls, a little before pre-COVID. I'm there chatting around. I'm chatting in this one. I hate to be stereotypical, but this one young lady was every stereotype, kind of a college-based party girl.
Okay.
She's in her
Yeah.
early
She's having a good
20s and
time.
doing her thing,
Yep.
having a good time and all that, and kind of blah. And I lose a lot of OMG and OLL, like using the acronyms out loud like it's a
What?
language. Again, that's teenage slang or slang of the time.
Yeah.
Just paying the as I set the character in that sense was and just on the menu and that and my last name. She's like, "Oh, wait, did they name the burger after you?" And all that. And I think it was Mark Smither behind the bar. Burst out laughing. It was like, "Oh my god!" It turned into kind of an inside joke and a thing.
Okay.
Because a few weeks later, the old sitcom How I Met Your Mother came out, or
Okay.
had a rerun of Barney the character, the womanizing character played by Neil Patrick Harris, going through his playbook,
Yeah.
like using that thing from the movie,
Yeah.
the scuba diver, whatever. And mine was joke as the Kensington. Step one,
Yeah.
hang a picture of yourself in a Kensington burger bar.
Yeah.
Step two, ask, wait for a younger lady to ask if that's you. Point out your book deal. Look, they even had a burger named after you. It was just kind of running.
And you know what, that it's like to have, it's a good burger too, that the Dunlop burger. It's a good burger. But did you remember the it just reminds me of we're talking a lot about film and TV and stuff, but was that Larry David when his, not Seinfeld, but his Curb Your Enthusiasm, there's that episode where he had the sandwich named after him, but it was like a codfish sandwich or something like that, and it was like gross. It was like he was just like bent about it. It was a really funny episode.
I have to see that. I have heard a lot about Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, it's a great show. Oh, you've never seen it? Oh, it's really good. It's really, really good. Yeah, it's great.
I can imagine. It's just in my world, and people telling me, I had a list, of.
Sorry, before we go on, like Cooch Ching Brewery, you're DJing at Kensington Burger Bar.
Kitchen Brewery, Kensington Burger Bar, Lucky La. What I was getting at is with the Spotify, and when I'm in there hanging out, and with Spotify, there's about 2-second delay.
Okay.
When a song ends to the next one comes in.
Yeah.
For me, that 2 seconds is like 2 minutes or 2 hours. The dead air.
Yeah.
Like I want that extra thing, the film sample. I want to keep going.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just the way my DNA is wired, my way my brain's wired. It drives me insane. Like that 2-second delay drives me friggin' insane.
No,
and
I could see that
in that flow. And also another shout out to Kitchen Craft Brewing Company. Late night Wolverine's Dark Lager will be back on tap. My own personal my collab beer with them.
Oh.
Hashtag shameless plug. Hashtag huge ego.
I'll get those under the we'll bring those up on the screen for you when you say that.
Yeah,
also you haven't given me a sample.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll go down.
I thought we were buds,
It's on tap, dude. You have to go down and hang out.
Do you want to go after this?
Oh, mate, we might.
Let's do
see
it.
If it's back on tap. They may bring another keg on. Maybe might come back on tap when I go back and when I step in on February 16th, I believe, for Vinyl Night. One of my residencies there. I actually just go up with 2 turntables and we spin vinyl all night. BYOV, bring your own vinyl. And it's an incredible experience. We go from and people of all ages show up with vinyl. We've gone from Jane's Addiction right on into Tom Jones doing his version of You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling.
Cool.
And half the bar turned into reenacting Top Gun, which is pretty badass.
That's a super fun thing to do. I used to do that at when I owned Bracebridge Hall. I started it was besides music and having concerts there. That was like the first event I did there was bring your own vinyl night, and I had all my own vinyl in there. That's what we played. We didn't play radio. Wow. We played vinyl, and so I had all my top choices there, and I'd play mine, and then on I think it was Wednesday nights we did it, and people would come in, they'd bring their vinyl, and then they'd play the side, and then we would vote if we were gonna flip it and do B-side. And yeah, it was super fun. It was great, and it's it just brought together all these awesome music lovers that were just into listening to new music and having, or even loving and coming together over old music, because with vinyls a lot of it is, legacy stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
vinyl
some of
night's
the older
fun.
school. It
Well,
is.
what
It
nights
is.
do you do that there?
That is usually it's usually a Thursday, third Thursday of the month. The next
Thursday of
one
the
will
month.
be Thursday, February 16th. Step into the second floor of the Kuchin Craft Brewing Company or the first floor.
I'll have
Spin
to come
all your
by.
favorite.
I'll have to come by for
Yeah.
that. I can't participate though. I sold all my albums when
Wow.
yeah,
You.
I have a place in Muskoka. So I built an apartment above my dad's workshop.
All right.
But when I went on tour, I like sublet it and stuff, and I've moved those things so many times, being so transient and moving around everywhere for work,
Mm.
and just going on tour and gigging, getting rid of an apartment when I go away for like a year or something. So I've moved those things
Right.
just way too many times, and I was subletting it when I was on tour, and then like the guy wanted to stay. No, a new guy came in while I was on tour, and he wanted to stay and bring some of his own furniture, and so I was like, okay, so I got to put my vinyls in storage now, or I can sell them, and yeah, so I sold them. It's I don't know
It's
how
been a
I
hard
feel
life.
about it yet. I'm still processing it. It's been like over a year now, and I'm still kind of processing it, and I feel differently. Like right now, I miss them, but other times I don't. Like when I would have to move them, for sure, is the one time.
Two things that attract me to vinyl are the expense and the inconvenience.
Yeah, that's yes. That's, and like, oh man, when I started collecting vinyl though, like I got this awesome collection off my uncle, and like I think he might have gave me about like 300 or 400, like just awesome vinyl. He was really into uh like heavier rock and like acid rock and southern rock. So that's the collection I started with. But when I sold it, I had over 2,000 albums, and like I brought in a lot of like punk rock and reggae, and more country music for sure. But yeah, it was a great collection, man.
Wow.
And I had also too like wicked, like I just had Eamon on the podcast. I had like his albums in there. Those are the things I miss the most. Those like albums I got from like bands I've worked with, or I should have kept those, but I didn't want to like. I knew if I went down that path of like picking out a couple, like it would just be the whole
Oh yeah.
pile, right? And I'd be like,
Right.
it was like I just had to like get them out of here.
Oh no, and like the last one I was something brand new because Mono Whales, who I've become good friends with,
Love
the
mono
band the other side
whales.
of the station, sent me their new record on vinyl to play at
Nice,
vinyl night. And I
nice.
was able to spin the new single on vinyl, which was great. They're also coming to see us in the Alternative North. I think they're coming when? Sunday, March 26th at the Rec Room, an 891 Max FM presentation,
Cool. Is
along
that
with
when
the
they're
Children's
coming up?
Promotion.
They're coming up to play with Our Lady Peace, right? Is that
So
the
that's in
same?
February, Casino Rama. This is
Okay.
their own headlining show at the Rec Room in Barrie.
Oh, cool. Right on.
Yep, so I believe it's March 26th, all ages.
Cool.
891 Max FM presentation, 891 Max FM presentation.
You know what we should
With,
do? We should go to we should go in Barrie when they're here, obviously.
yes.
But we should go to. Have you ever been to Heartwood Hall in Collingwood?
No.
Dude, we should road trip there and go see the Mono Whales
Yeah.
show, because Heartwood Hall is just an awesome, awesome venue.
Is Hartwood Hall the inspiration for Bracebridge Hall? As I flip the interview around.
You can't do that. That's not how this works, sir. You can't flip it around.
I do what I do when I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Heartwood Hall was the inspiration for Bracebridge Hall, for sure. Like 100%. Yes, I've actually spoken with the owner of Heartwood Hall, and I've told him that. Also, like Dakota Tavern in Toronto was a big inspiration. The Cameron House,
Named after
the Cameron House was a big inspiration. And just the way they operate, not only in like aesthetics wise, it was a little different, but just more so the way they operated, and that was the inspiration behind it, which I think is more important than aesthetics, because aesthetics come and go. Things become popular, and the aesthetics of the places you're hanging out change. But operational wise, the thing I love about Hartwood Hall is they bring in all these awesome artists, and they're curating it themselves. They don't hire promoters or they don't rent their hall to promoters to put on shows. They do, but the bulk of their content is all in-house programming, and they do just a fantastic job of it. As you see, the Monorails are coming there, and I've seen,
incredible.
I went there to see Freeman Dre play. I have seen Road Waves, who is another friends of mine band that went through there. Julian Taylor, just all these amazing indie artists go through there, and that's what I wanted. I used to hang out at the Cameron House all the time. I used to hang out at the Dakota Tavern all the time, and the bands that were coming through there were just all these cool emerging acts, and you really have to have a programmer that is on the pulse to pull it off. So definitely Hartwood Hall was just such an inspiration, because they do such a great job of just bringing awesome programming.
Incredible.
I just plugged Hartwood Hall for 5 minutes.
Well,
shout out Hartwood Hall. No more asking questions.
Oh no, okay. The last one would
see what happens. It all falls apart.
It falls apart. Well, a little known fact for all the listening Radio Land: the Dakota Tavern is named after Dakota, our friend Dakota from the Kensington Burger Bar in the Lucky Lab.
Was it really?
After DK.
No, it wasn't. Fuck off. Shout out DK though, for sure.
Yeah, it's just by way of weasel in to shout out to DK.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, it was named after him.
That's hilarious.
The Dunlop Burger was named after me. That I just went down. Yes, I went there. I went down that tangent. Went down that route.
Shout out our lovely friend DK.
DK the man.
Man, this interview's falling apart, but I'm loving it. I had this kind of structure to go down and
podcast, homeboy.
Yeah.
As someone who's directed a lot of
it's a podcast, but I'm a control freak,
Oh, well aware.
Yeah.
That's why
I'm yeah. You bastard.
But I've made a whole living out of disrupting things, thinking about things differently, and doing things differently. And
I love you and respect you for it. And also hate it right now, but All
right, so let's go back to structure. There's some.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask my questions now?
Please do.
Stop talking. Let's talk. We touched on the past of radio and stuff. And I think it's pretty obvious the importance of it and stuff. But what are you doing currently now? Because I think for a lot of artists it's no secret that there's a process for an artist to get on the radio traditionally, and I don't really know the ins and outs of it too much, but spoiler alert for those who don't know, the music industry's fake and it's all bought and paid for. But so a radio promoter will get in contact with a radio station and say, hey, play these artists, and artists and artist management pay them to do that. So they're basically a door-to-door salesman to radio stations on behalf of artists. As an indie station, how does that work with you? And what's your do you obviously get radio promoters knocking on your door all the time, I'm sure. Yeah. But you must, as an indie radio station, get some just direct indie artists who maybe don't have money for that. Do you who are you listening to now who doesn't have who are you playing now who doesn't have rep?
That's an interesting question, Jacob. Basically based on the fact that certain bands, when they pick up momentum, end up with promo.
Yeah.
We talked about Monorails earlier. We were on I believe 891 Max FM was on Monorails even before I joined the station. Barb Jelly, who was doing the music at the time, picked up on All or Nothing and had it in
Yep.
rotation first. And I don't know if that came from RPM or not. And they're handled by I don't want to say RPM. Are they handled by RPM? Well, they're now being handled by
Mm,
Warner. Warner actually,
I'm
which
not too sure.
they're not like, but now they got involved with Warner, and I'm just trying to work my way through. Sorry, it was Kara
Fun
Heath that
fact though, I actually for like the briefest moment in history, then this is around their home release.
right.
I was acting. I can't remember if it was I doing man. I had a few bands, so it's a little fuzzy, but it was either management and agent or just agent. But I was working with them back like for just like a brief moment of time. There was like, and then we both kind of split from that management company at the same time. But
Understood.
yeah, they're love the Mono Whales, man. But you mentioned like indie,
Kara,
like
like
local artists and stuff too. Like
local
that's
artists.
like, like a radio promoter would never be bringing up these names. So like,
Well, we
who are
have
you? Let's plug some local artists here.
well, right now a lot of support as I'm going through it is a local artist in town here. The band's called Ray.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Reay.
yeah,
Sean Murray's band, who just did a fantastic job doing charity, a promo, a fundraising concert, or an awareness concert for the Sharing Place Food
yeah.
Bank here in Aurelia.
Hmm.
A great show they put on, and and it's a band full of. I didn't notice at the time. In on playing drums was an individual by the I think his name is Justin, but he's from Platinum Blonde, the original
Okay.
drummer of Platinum Blonde. Fantastic kind of veteran players who have kind of moved on from the glitz and glamour of rock and roll
Yep.
and put together this fantastic band, fantastic record, and I've really gotten into that. Um, in terms of the indie bands, I'm always curious what we're coming in. I really like Soft Cult, which is the Van Horn sisters who came out of Courage My Love, kind of get with a more kind of a 90s or grungier sound. Really got into the new Crystal Method record, even though it's one guy, which I really, even though again it's not independent.
Hmm.
Um, Another band who I liked, I started playing, or an artist who've in a lot of ways been filling the hole in my heart since the disbandment of Daft Punk out of Montreal, La Belle Province, Quebec, is Black Tiger Sex Machine. Like kind of electronic bass band, and I'm not too sure where
Okay.
their label. I just find their records in the store and play them.
Cool.
Like, there's no
Yeah.
promoter knocking on my door
Yeah. Yeah.
in that regards.
Yeah. So it's like more like you're discovering, not like artists knocking on your
Discovering and
door.
just, or I think that's kind of cool, or I talk to other kind of guys in the club and DJs. See, traditionally, Jake, as for the listeners there, yeah, there'd be radio promo. But with the creation of live to airs and putting, it's a very much a Toronto, New York thing, as I found out. Having club DJs having radio shows and doing radio sets on your Saturday nights. They were doing deeper dives into cuts and kind of breaking songs that traditionally the record company didn't have no plan to market or did not hear as a single. In the Martin Streek film, I'll go into a deeper dive on it. Prime example is Nine Inch Nails "Closer."
Hmm.
With the we all know the infamous chorus,
Hmm.
and it was again Paul Dingra and Martin Streek playing that when that single came out. Uncensored, I like to point out on the live to air broadcasts and CFOY to the point where it picks up record sales and momentum. And next thing you know, I think Rob Johnston is producing a radio friendly, doing a quick radio edit for it. So May Potts can be playing on the midtime show at 11 o'clock in 11 o'clock in the morning on 102 FM, 2.1 FM, the Edge, Leading Edge, CFNY, whatever they were using at the time. And that was something came out of the clubs. And that came, it goes back to disco. So where I'm getting at that for everyone is it's kind of a two-prong when it comes to me. Radio promo or the record company will reach out with maybe a remix, something they may not get radio play, but they'll ask me to listen to it, and if I'm into it, will I play it in the club? Or maybe and they know I have the freedom to maybe play it on Saturday nights on the radio show. And but yeah, that's how that's usually comes to be.
Cool.
We're in a very fortunate position with this station to be tastemakers, but still, there's
Yeah.
still kind of protocol. And
Yeah.
no, people have asked me. I'm going to say this right now. No, record companies do not send over gorgeous women with bags of cocaine and bags of money saying, "Play this record." There's no payola. because I've been getting that question a lot lately. I don't know where that came from,
Yeah.
but there's nothing like that. Um, but in terms of the independent artists, we do the 5 local artists a day, which you can submit through on the website. All we ask is it's a decent record quality that can be actually legally broadcast, and a little bit about yourselves, and we
Cool.
throw it into the 5 Indie Day feature. Out of that as well, in terms of but pure independent out the promo. Back to that original question, I feel like as I'm getting into Ray, there's something out of Barry that was turned to me by a friend, James Collins, great friend, great actor by the way. It's something called Beta One, and I believe it's a kind of a club kind of producer who's out of Barrie, Ontario. I don't know much about it, but I'm really kind of getting into it.
Okay.
He had a song called "Galaxy of Stars," which I really, really, really liked, and had a kind of a Moby kind of vibe after play, kind of that kind of electronic pop vibe to it, which I thought was really fantastic. And a new song's I'm actually looking forward to listen to it. I'm gonna check it out. When we're done here, and I believe it's a cover of some form, which is always cool because I always like interpretations and covers. But to see bands like, for example, Crownlands kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I remember when they didn't
Yep.
really have anybody. They were just two guys rocking in Oshawa with a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
See that grow and develop into what they are.
Yep.
Another band in Vancouver called Fake Shark, and just someone by twist of fate sent me their cover of White Town's Your Woman, and I started playing on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And requests for it, and eventually moved it into regular rotation on 89.1. And then now they have I believe, a radio promo behind them. But that single came to me just through word of mouth, saying, "Someone check this out." Me playing it and digging it, and people getting into it.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Well, like another example of that is the Glorious Sons.
Oh yes,
dude, I remember I was living down in Niagara at the time they broke, and they were like a local, like just a local band at that point. Like I think they'd done some touring and everything, but then they got on like the alternative station contest there, and they won it, and then it was just like,
oh yeah, Glorious Sons kind of, again, for me, I gotta go way back on that because they're managed by someone I grew up with. Speaking at the local cottage, his family no longer has a cottage. An individual by the name of Jason Murray, who I can remember, like I've known my whole life. I haven't spoken to Jason on a real serious level in many years, but those kind of conversations being around the cot, telling me about something he had found, one being Glorious Sons. So just to see again their evolution going from where my first time hearing about them to where they are now is 1,000,000,000 miles.
Yeah,
Is that even a
for
number?
sure.
1,000,000,000?
I don't know where they stand now, really. I don't know if they've gotten into the Canadian market, but like they've definitely like they're, as the Canadian market for music and like that, like kind of plateau that all these artists kind of get to. They're definitely standing on that right now. But like I don't know if they've gotten up to that next like international plateau.
I do know they've opened for the Rolling Stones in Europe.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know Sawed-Off Shotgun, SOS, had a bit of a slow burn on radio, and it kept going, and then US radio picked it up. I believe it was a minor radio hit in the US.
Okay.
I have to double check that.
Yeah.
But I do know there's some momentum. And the other thing is they were kind of rising. They're like a lot of Canadian bands that were coming up, slowed down by COVID and concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
Because Glorious Sons built themselves off of that blue collar work of putting on a kick ass show.
Yep.
And
100%.
if there's only 10 people in a club, they would bring that 10 people to their knees.
Yeah.
And
well, like I said, when they were, before they were breaking, they were a local band, and very much part of that whole scene down there. And they did it, man. They had a show, they had energy, and they worked hard.
Just before COVID, I remember they sold out 2 or 3 consecutive shows at Scotiabank Center, aka ECC in Toronto, like an arena show. Which, it dictates, the
big.
US is next.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I think, like a lot of bands, they lost momentum due to COVID.
For sure.
Right. Next
Yeah.
question. I know. Keep this
I
organized,
think that's
control
it,
freak.
dude. I'm just like,
That is
I'm just
it. I'm
winging
just
it
getting warmed
now.
up. I am just
You
getting
think I
warmed
had
up.
any of this written down? No, I'm just joking.
I'm not. You're the control freak.
I am. I had all this written
I'm used to
down,
going
and then
4
you
or 5
messed it all
hours.
up, man.
What I do.
I don't know how you can do that. Like I do lots of other kinds of podcasting other than this.
Right.
Like I have a dumb little video game thing I do with my friends, and I can maybe do like 1 or 2 hours. But like on in that community, there's people who do like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. And it's like right now my ass hurts. I wanted to get up about 15 minutes ago. But, so what I'm saying is bye. Thanks.
I just say like, wow. Yeah, it's true because I gotta take
Well, we got to go for a beer. Do you want to go for a beer?
Oh, I gotta take my pup out.
Yeah.
Where are you now? Are you in Aurelia?
Yeah, I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you. Cut this all
Listeners,
out.
where
I
you
got.
Okay,
let's end this. You know what? I am a control freak, but I didn't write down an ending. So,
All right.
Thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it was super fun, man. I knew it would be.
No, this is fantastic. First, if you are listening, DJ Wilverine 89.1 Max FM Beyond the 89 Saturday Nights Commercial Free Chaos, courtesy of the Kuchin Craft Brewing Company. And you find me in a club soon, Final nights at Kuchin Craft Brewing Company again. Possibly other places, the ones that we just mentioned earlier. Throughout Barrie, Muskoka, the 705, feeling the love, feeling the vibe. Cottage Country is the place to be. In a closet scratch on the wheels of steel. Jacob D has me in on the podcast. Feeling good, feeling all right. Jake D, rocking the beard. Rocking the sick beard, dude.
Dude, thank you for not using your radio voice in this interview because I couldn't have got through it.
What do you mean my radio? Oh, you brought this up. Yeah, my radio voice.
It melts me.
It melts you. Well, you brought it up earlier. Because my voice sounds different overall since when I first met you, and comes from now being on the radio and practicing and learning projection techniques from
for sure.
People I've met. It's like going to the gym, and your voice does change because vocal cords are like muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And
just mic technique too is super
absolutely.
important
And very important,
Mm-hmm.
and learn the microphone and equipment. And I've gotten better equipment to work with. I think the first time I was doing this show, first few times I did the show on a pre-record, the demo, I was actually using an old iPhone.
Yep.
Actually record.
Hey, dude, like iPhones have really good quality.
They do. But then you get into that level, and it wasn't keeping up with the way I was going, with the way I was projecting and going forward, and the way I was sounding, and everything that I was bringing to the table. My, biggest influences being Chris Shepard and the Wolfman from the Hilarious House of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Shout out to Uncle Van. Yeah, and I just feel my voice has gotten stronger and tighter, and like I can walk into a place like Cooch Brewery or the Lucky Lab or Kensington's or wherever and say hi. I know it's music cracked, and say hi to, I'll say Bailey because she's wondering where my dog is. She'll wonder where's Shep, and I can bounce. I can almost see my voice bouncing off the back over everybody.
Yeah,
and that's part of it. Like, and just amazing. Like it's just been sorry, it's like almost a self-journey. Like you work. Wow, I sound like that now. And
it's always too, like, what people don't realize. So like when you hear your recorded voice, it is it's just so weird, man. People say I have a good voice, and I don't believe it. I like whenever I hear it, I sound like way nasalier than I am, and then I hear myself, and I'll higher. So I'm nasally and higher, and it drives me nuts. It's like I find my voice annoying, so I apologize to everyone that listens to this stupid thing.
The one thing I very much learned from also doing Toastmasters and a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't talk a lot about it, but coming from someone being on the autistic spectrum and not really speaking properly till I was about 6 years old, you learn that it isn't really about, and listening to people like Don Daynard, you learn very quickly it isn't about having that voice, that silky, sexy, panty-melting voice.
Yeah.
It's about speaking with a certain level of confidence.
Yeah.
Speaking with a certain level of projection, a certain level of belief in yourself. And that's where that comes from. And so when people say you have a good voice, it usually means that you've spoken to them with a level of confidence. You've also looked them in the eye. It comes with the body language or
Yeah.
what they perceive as your body language, because they can hear you. They can just they're picturing what you look like in a radio format, and that connects, and it isn't about having that richness, the golden voice, like God or genetics tapped you on the shoulder. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it's from you. It's speaking with confidence, speaking from your heart. And as my friend Jocelyn, shout out to JoJo Hill, who is the mother of J2 Squared, who also works in Kensington, Anna. Well, he says, you can't be a pussy on the air. He says that's what makes it work, because you're not a pussy when you're on the radio.
Yeah.
And it's kind of true. It really is true. You just kind of
Yeah.
got to go in there and be. You may be scared, but you got to go in there and be fearless.
For sure, man. For sure.
And that is all I got. So if anyone's inspired in the radio and someone says you don't have a great voice, no, it isn't. Be yourself. Find your personality. Try different things. Listen to the jocks that inspired you, and take that and develop what inspired you about them. Eventually find your own way. Maybe start by doing some of their impressions. We all have them. Myself is
Yeah.
Chris Shepard. Or Strombolopoulos talks about, if I can just sound as half as good as Jim Richards, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But Jim Richards, who I love, he's in this area right now, I believe. Jim, if you're listening, let's also go for a beer.
Yeah, let's all go for a beer for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your
Thanks for having
time,
me.
and yeah, it's super fun. And I'll shoot you a message, and we'll grab a beer or something, and catch up, and not talk shop for an hour.
Oh, that'll be amazing. All right, so yeah, we're gonna get off here, boys and girls.
All right, buddy.
Gotta go. I gotta get off the radio.
One more thing before we go. Can you do a hostile Jakeover, a couple hostile Jakeover bits for me?
Absolutely.
Speaking of Control Freak, can I direct the director?
Yes, you can.
All right.
You may.
Well, can you just say you're watching the Hostile Jakeover podcast?
All right. And this is DJ Wilverine, and you are checking out the Hostile Jakeover podcast right here on the Hostile Jakeover Network.
That's not what I said.
All right. You are watching the Hostile Jake podcast.
Jake over. Come on.
Jake over. You are watching the Hostile Jakeover podcast.
Awesome. Great. Now, can you say Jacob's the best looking guy I've ever met, and watch his podcast because he's super cute and has
Jacob
a cool
is by far
rainbow tattoo.
Looking guy I have ever met. You should watch and listen to his podcast, because he is so super cute, like a 90s girl fondling over Justin Timberlake for the first time cute. Like
I do have that effect on everyone.
Over members of Take That for the first time. Kind of cute.
I appreciate that. It's a blessing and a curse.
Oh, well aware.
All right, my friend.
To the Jakeover podcast.
Okay, we're done. Shut up, man. We're done.
All right, dude.
I really should have put in some kind of structure to this ending.
I know.
Yeah.
But structure, it's freeform. This is freeform DJ, what we do.
Right.
All right, we got to go get off the podcast.
All right. Say hi to the pooch for me. And all right. Later, Will.
See you soon.